But wanted to take this opportunity, folks, to welcome you to our second live moving industry roundtable. My name is Travis Wingate. I am the VP of Marketing here at Supermove. And at Supermove, we are on a mission to change the way the world moves. And while we do offer the best all-in-one software solution in the market for movers, like you folks who are joining the call, we also, part of our goal in having these sessions is to really connect movers with other movers in the industry to discuss their challenges, their ideas, their opportunities, or simply, just to network. And that's why we've created, our roundtable series, as well as the Ask the Expert series. Now, a few weeks ago, if you folks weren't able to join, we had a really great session where we talked about a variety of challenges that are impacting the moving industry right now. And one of those topics that came up was, this idea of a looming recession. Depending on who you ask, some folks say we're already in one, some folks think there's one coming, and then some folks don't think we'll actually ever go into a full recession. So there's a variety of different opinions there. But out of that conversation came the idea of how do you recession-proof your moving and storage business really through the lens of finance. And so that's why we're here today. That's going to be the topic of conversation. So before I pass it over to Heidi and the guys, there is a Q&A block or a little button down at the bottom of the Zoom webinar area where if you will drop your questions into that as we go. My goal here is to make sure that I am trying to interject some of those questions into the conversation. So please, please, please feel free to ask any questions, add some comments, and we're going to try to get to all of those that we possibly can. This is being recorded. So for some reason, if you have to drop off, don't worry, we will send it over your way later in the week. And if we're unable to answer some of those questions, we will definitely try to do that in the recap email that we'll also be sending out. So housekeeping is done. So without further ado, really excited that we are joined today by Matt, who is the owner of Matt's Moving. Dave, he is the fractional CFO, and we'll get into more of what that means for them and his organization. And then Jon, who is the operations manager, to talk about how you can recession-proof your business through the lens of finance. And with that, I am going to turn it over to the one and only Heidi. I believe she is the face of Supermove, and she will be moderating today's conversation. So with that, Heidi, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Travis. Yeah, so we have an awesome panel here. Matt Mathias, owner of Matt's Moving. He started his business in 2008 in Minneapolis, and they now have 3 locations across the state. He actually didn't start in the moving industry. He started in the mortgage industry, worked for a mortgage broker, and then started doing it on his own. He had a lot of experience doing manual labor. So one day he advertised on Craigslist for moving services, and the rest was history, which is crazy. I'll let him talk more about that. Jon Daly started at Matt's Moving as an owner-operator, moved into dispatch, slowly moved his way more into the office, and is now a partner at the company. And Dave, the fractional CFO, he's been a consultant with over 25 years of experience in finance and accounting, and most of his career has been spent serving companies that are in the transportation and logistics industries. I'll start off by asking us some questions that were submitted during registration, and just to jump right into it, I'd love to know how all of you guys got started in the industry and what really keeps you in it. Matt, do you want to start us off?
Sure. Well, it was a financial need that I had back in the when the last recession started. I was in, like you said, manual labor prior to that, before the mortgage industry and real estate industry. I was in the mortgage and real estate industry for a few years, just while it was hot. I saw the money people were making and ended up opening my own mortgage company, got my real estate license, and within a couple of years of getting that done, the market had collapsed, and my wife and I at the time had some babies and a new home, and I kind of actually missed being out working manual labor, and I've always kind of thought about a moving company just for, at the time it was the cash aspect of it. I never thought it'd grow to this level, but it was for a financial need, I guess. And like you said, I started on Craigslist, and thinking it was going to be a temporary fix for some income. And within about a year, I started getting referrals, repeat customers, and bought my own truck. And it's history since then. It's just now we're running 32 trucks, and everything's out of control, crazy in a good way.
And what keeps you in the industry?
I think it's very challenging in many ways. It's a business education I really enjoy getting from running the business. Obviously, like all owners of a company, I think the financial gain of running a business is always going to be your primary motivator. But yeah, it's all around a good business and a great business, and it's been a real challenge in many ways, and as they say, blood, sweat, and tears. But I look at it as experience, and hopefully we can, you know, beyond the moving company vertical into other industries that revolve around the moving industry.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Jon, what about you?
Yeah, so I started moving furniture with a few friends. They were working for an interstate moving company throughout college, and as I was working with them, I kind of figured, there's like 8 of us here that all went to high school. We could probably do something on our own. Kind of dropped that idea, went to college, worked on weekends for a moving company, and when I got out, I was searching for jobs when I graduated in Mankato State, and reached out to Matt for an in-office job just because I had moving experience, wanted to be in the office, didn't want to move anymore. He basically kind of guided me into starting my own business. I started leasing a truck, contracting for him, bought a truck, got a couple more, and eventually had enough staff to where I didn't have to work full time on the trucks anymore. And then I, came to Matt trying to get some more work, and came into the office, did dispatch, moved up in there, and eventually sold out into buying into Matt's moving.
And what keeps you in the industry?
A lot of what Matt said, obviously, financial reasons, and it is overall a good business. The guys are great. A lot of good personalities in the moving industry. It's nice to be able to help customers that literally can't do what we do for themselves. That the physical work is really hard, and it's nice to be able to help people get that stuff done in timely manners when they have, it's a really important decision for them which moving company they use. It's a really important day, their move day. It's expensive, it's stressful, they're moving their home. Some people have been there for 20 something years. So it's an emotional thing for them. I kind of like being a part of that process.
Yeah. Awesome. And Dave?
Yeah, back in the day, I was in public accounting and did a management consulting project for a fairly good sized regional moving and storage company. And the ownership group there asked me to come and implement the recommendations that I had, recommended, and went and did that and helped that company grow. That company ended up actually splitting into 2 pieces. There's a rigging and crane service branch, and also, the moving and storage branch. And so that's kind of when I got my first flavor for outsourcing, because I still did the accounting for both of those companies. So from there, my kind of love of outsourcing just kept growing, and it's exciting to be able to work with companies of different sizes, moving and storage, transportation, logistics companies. And that's how I got I found Matt. Matt reached out when I contacted him. They're a growing company and had a need for financial services on the accounting side. But again, not big enough to have a full-time controller or CFO on staff. So it worked out well. And over the last year plus here, I've been helping these guys grow, and they're taking off. They're doing a good job. So
Matt, I want to ask you, what are some of the biggest challenges you face as the owner of the company?
I think the larger we get, the harder quality control is to manage. The more people we have, office and out in the field. My second thought is expectations to manage, I guess, be a challenge of customers and the movers and drivers and office staff. I think it's a good thing. Like I said, the challenges that are presented to us, it keeps us growing, and we're always on top of those challenges to research and ask for help and consult with other professionals to keep us growing in the right direction. Obviously, competition's always there. I mean, a lot of Minneapolis, St. Paul's a very transient suburb and cities, and a lot of people are always moving, but there are also a lot of moving companies. So as a leader, I think we're one of the larger companies now in Minneapolis, and you have that fierce competition to want to keep up with us now, and even some negative stuff that happens online from competition. So there are many facets to the challenges, I guess, but those are the things that stand out to me. Just quality control gets to be more challenging as you get bigger.
And with that, just want to ask, how are you thinking about, how are you making the decision when it comes to hiring? I think,
Sure.
You mentioned that, you hire owner operators, you
Yeah.
may have some contract versus full-time workers. I think Dave, for example, being a fractional CEO, so CFO. So what's like the mindset of hiring?
Yeah. Well, with sales staff, I do believe the best employee is going to be an in-office full-time employee. In other pieces of the business, like Department of Transportation, accounting, HR, what else was there? Sales consulting, even like we are moving, and I see a large market opening for those fractional people that can help on the higher level of things about having to hire a full-time person. Most people nowadays, it's in the last couple, 2-3 years, their expectations for salaries skyrocketed. And I've been, if you guys have heard of Upwork, but we use Upwork a lot to find contract project-based consultants. So if we have a sales development piece that you don't think one of the staff in our office that has the time for it or the skill set for it, we'll go looking for a fractional consultant to help us complete a project. So I think that's where a lot of companies should really look into in this near future is fractional help as needed, and don't be afraid to reach out and inquire and ask questions with small businesses that offer that fractional help, no matter what the piece of the business that you're working on.
Do you have to spend a lot of time training people who have no knowledge of the industry, when you're hiring a fractional position?
I'm scared. Excuse me, one more time.
Do you find yourself having to spend a lot of time training someone, about the industry before they're able to actually, provide value to your company, because they're usually, probably someone that doesn't have any moving industry knowledge? Right.
Well, all of the people actually that we've hired in more of the operational pieces, like dispatch and kind of management, IT, well, not the IT networking area, but dispatch and Department of Transportation compliance. We've hired people with experience. Now the sales staff, if they have a good personality, a good attitude, and speak well on the phone and are quick on the keyboard, they're easily trainable. The way the system we have on training for a sales rep.
Yeah.
Like I said, everything. Some of the other pieces we have third-party consultants that help us develop or manage the other pieces of the business.
Okay.
Yeah,
Dave,
so I mean, the
Yeah.
training's not crazy, and we have a great support team. I mean, everybody in our office is able and willing to help as directed and when they have time. So we have a great office of people that are willing to help train too.
Yeah. Dave, as the CFO, do you have any thoughts on, how companies should be looking at hiring full-time, part-time?
Yeah. Well, kind of, along the lines of the theme of the day of, how to recession-proof your company. And I think we look at it as, I think Matt looks at it as whether you're in a recession or not. I mean, put the best person in the seat, whether they're fractional or whether they're full time, right? I mean, in our case, Matt was growing and they had a need, a software need, right? I mean, so he was working with his own database at the time for leads, for customers, for CRM. But on the back end, they had QuickBooks Desktop that was kind of built up over the years. A lot of different people had touched it. It didn't make a whole lot of sense. We came in, put together some financial statements for them, got them to QuickBooks Online, and it just made it kind of improved their whole processes overall. And now the next step with Supermove, obviously that's going to help them get them to the next level there. But again, it's set up now. I think nowadays you don't need somebody that's a full-time CFO or controller for a small to medium size, even maybe some of the larger companies. Why incur that cost, right? Those people are expensive, and you do have a need for them sometime, right? To get a bank loan, to buy a new truck, things like that, to publish your financial statements. Your banker to support your line of credit is going to need that. But for the most part, what we find when we go in there, 70% of what a controller does can be trained down to a lower level of staff. So if you're really looking at a place to cut costs, it might be at that CFO or controller level.
What is like the meat and potatoes of you said 70% of the controller can be passed down. So like, are those kind of decision-making skills for a company in order to save money?
Well, I think what happens in a lot of companies that grow and somebody, it's kind of the Peter principle, right? For some of these, where you grow into a job and you're the most knowledgeable accounting person, then pretty soon you're the controller, right? Well, that person usually ends up wearing a lot of hats. Maybe they do invoicing, maybe they do accounts payable, maybe they cut checks, maybe they do, but those are all routine data processes that a staff level person can do, right? But they've grown into the controller role. Well, if you eliminate that controller position, you can push those jobs back down to the lower level staff where they belong. And so as you grow, that's just going to give you the opportunity to use that available cash that you may spend on a full-time CFO or controller, spend that on different resources to help grow the company.
Yeah. Don and Matt, I don't know if you want to get into this too much, but I'm just curious on the philosophy of hiring owner operators if you want to elaborate on that. Has it been really difficult? You said, obviously the labor challenge, but are you still trying to, make that, keep that?
Yeah.
You're on. Oh, sorry, your mic's on mute.
Okay. Was that towards me?
No, either you.
Yeah, I can touch on that.
Go ahead, John.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, in terms of hiring owner operators, it is always great to get some experience in there. It's in terms of moving experience, that's always a necessity. The business aspect, we've done a great job of coaching guys along and teaching them what they need and things that benefit them and things that can make them successful. It's kind of up to them to grow and expand and be successful, but we can provide tools, and it also helps us with keeping quality up because that allows them to be more responsible for damages and customer service and things of that nature. So that definitely helps our company, grow and get good reviews and expand. But, that's obviously a challenge, finding good movers, good workers that want to do more and go above and beyond. In terms of office staff, it's great to have operational pieces have moving experience because this is a little bit more than picking up furniture and boxes and stacking it into a truck. It takes a long time to be trained fully on being able to answer every curveball and handle every situation that arises.
Yeah,
really managing labor is one of the hardest parts of running a moving company. as any people in this watching this know that how spotty a lot of guys can be in the industry. I'm not talking down about anybody, but that's just the reality of it. So filtering people or movers and drivers and try them out and meet with them and do your due diligence and hiring, and that's key on, like I said earlier, the quality control. A lot of companies keep people around just because they need a body, unfortunately, and that's an unfortunate part of our labor market at this point. When I did start the company as an employee-based company. So I had 5 trucks, 15 guys running, and it was myself and one other office staff. This was after a couple, 2-3 years, but I actually had owner operators from other moving companies in the Twin Cities see our trucks around, and they contacted me, and I didn't even know that existed, to be honest. I know that there were subcontractors, but I didn't really think about it in the moving industry. And our sub that's with us now still, he's up to 6 trucks and about 14 guys, and he started with 2 trucks, 5 guys with mats. He came from another small moving company and said, here's what I do. I get paid a percentage. I have my own insurance. I have my own business entity. I pay for claims. I pay for my trucks, fuel, my guys, everything, and I get this percentage. I don't want to say what that is, but and I was kind of flabbergasted, thinking, well, this would be great because we can book more work and we don't have to manage the labor. We do in some sense, of course, quality control, and we still have that right as a company to terminate the relationship if the quality is not there. But it really did open up the floodgates for me in my idea and the model for the business to continue moving in that direction. I just knew that I was better fit to be the visionary and grow the company, not manage labor. And the subcontractors that we have, they become managers on their trucks. So it's like having a manager on every truck or every few trucks that this owner operator runs. And which I believe keeps the quality control up. If you as the business can still manage that owner operator well, and it's still a lot of work managing owner operators, I guess you'd call it. But it does, if you set it up right legally with the entities and insurance, with state and federal tax laws, owner operator agreements, and if you lease trucks or not, make sure you formalize it. Everything that's legal by what basically our government wants you to do for separation of employee and owner operator, because the feds and the states are really cracking down on that independent contractor model, because there are a lot of companies that run 1099 guys that don't have their own insurance, that don't actually pay their taxes, and it comes back to the business owner. So setting it up correctly is key. And if you have guys that are able to do that, or owner operators are able to do that, they're on a different level than the typical just manual labor that wants to be 1099. So there are a few pieces to it, but to get into that, answering the question, I guess that's our model at this point. We have thrown around the idea of hiring some employee drivers and movers to run some trucks for us, but we actually have our model in the Twin Cities is well known with a lot of other moving companies. So what's happening now is that recruiting is happening on its own organically. People are coming to us knowing that's how we run. They'll call us or inquire, or they're another owner or operator at a different moving company in the Twin Cities, and they'll ask, are you guys not hiring, but are you guys adding any owner operators? So it's really kept us growing. And not to say that some of the owner ops that come in don't have the quality system in place that we want. So we have parted with several owner operators in the last few years, and that's going to happen regardless.
Yeah.
So that overhead and that responsibility and that management is still in place. I believe it's a lot less running owner operators. So that's what we're going to continue to do, is add with owner ops. Even if we expand in other markets, I think we'll find owner operators that are working for other companies, or small companies that don't want to do the administrative part of the business.
Yeah.
So along that, a question actually just came in, and I think it ties in nicely there. So a couple points that came in. Someone said, they love the idea of saving the money at the top because, it obviously supports the organization financially, but also provides, the benefit to the individual as well. So these folks that you're bringing in, the opportunity to grow as well, because you can invest more in them. So that was an interesting point someone made in the chat. One of the questions that just came up is, can you speak to how you leverage, quality and education over price? So the statement was, we need to separate ourselves now more than ever. Price is more important to shippers now than ever before. So can you really speak to how you leverage quality and education kind of over price? And I don't know, maybe Jon or Dave, or yeah, go ahead, Matt, please.
Yeah, they kind of run hand in hand. I mean, you have to have
Right.
one to do the other. I don't know what you mean by education, but I think it's about those initial meetings you have with potential employee or owner operator, and ask them, how do you run? What's your SOP for the day? How do you treat the customers? I mean, we still interview and filter, I'll call it, owner ops and potential employees. We actually help owner operators find employees too. But they run hand in hand. It's really, the moving industry, as everybody knows, is very word of mouth. It's just as important as your Google and Yelp reviews online. So you have a good standing and a good reputation. People in this industry, or they're hiring movers, are willing to pay more money to have a quality service. Well, most people are figuring that out finally, I think. There are a lot of shoppers still that'll hire, the Craigslist mover, 2 guys in a truck for $50 an hour, and soon find out most of those small companies will not show up, will be very unprofessional, damage their goods, not communicate well. So that quality control, like I said, they run hand in hand.
And from a sales aspect, you want to be able to explain that to your shipper or customer. Make sure you point out all your good points and urge them to go online and make sure that they're doing their due diligence. This is an industry where bad things can happen to good people, and you want to make sure that you have a credible company handling your goods.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Thanks for that.
I want to keep the conversation going. And Dave, this question's for you. I've heard of a lot of different ways to improve cash flow. So how should movers be thinking about paying off debt?
Yeah, good question. I mean, so obviously cash flow is always tight generally in a moving and storage company. And so you have debt on your trucks, you may have debt on a building. And you go through different periods of time during the year where you can look at different things and say, hey, do we have opportunities here? One of them is we're coming into tax time right here. We're at the end of the year where you have to make some significant tax decisions. Most moving and storage companies are set up as S corps, LLCs, basically pass-through entities for tax purposes that get passed. So they're not taxed at the corporate level, but they're taxed at the owner's level. Well, you have some opportunities there because those are generally a cash-based business. And so the expenses are not on an accrual basis for financial statements, or on a cash basis. So you can speed up paying some of your expenses now to cut your tax bill, right? To create more cash flow, which in turn you can pay down some debt. The other thing, this is the last year of full bonus depreciation when you purchase a truck. So if you do that before 12/31, you get 100% write-off. Your tax bracket's probably going to be somewhere in the 35-40% all in. So that's a significant savings that you can generate now. You don't have to pay for that truck right now. So it might be increasing a little bit of debt and getting the benefits of improving the cash flow. So all of it is, it's timing really in terms of, you certainly want to pay off your highest interest debt first. Take a look at that. Try and reduce, and maybe, if you're not paying off your highest interest debt, pay off your debt with the highest payment, and generate a little extra cash flow there. There's really several things you can do, but again, you got to have a good handle on your financials and kind of do some planning coming into the end of the year.
And are there any tax considerations that movers should be thinking about?
Yeah.
You mentioned the purchasing of the asset like by the end of the year, but is that like
Yep.
how do companies
your two biggest levers are purchasing assets, and not, when I say assets, not land or building, because those are not 100% bonus depreciation allowable. But if you're looking at rolling stock or equipment for your business, that's going to be generally going to be 100% tax deductible. So that's a lever that you can pull. With other tax moves that you can make is paying down expenses, right? You can prepay expenses. So let's say insurance is a big cost for a moving and storage company. If you pay that in advance by the end of the year, you can deduct it now and save the cash flow savings, assuming you have income to write down that you're going to have to pay taxes on. So taxes it's a big key in cash flow for a company this size, and it has to be actively managed. It's not something you can do after the year going into April 15th and you show up with a bunch of receipts and expenses to your accountant and go, well, how much do I owe? I mean, you have to be thinking about this well ahead of time.
Yeah, it seems like it can get really technical. So I'm just curious, Jon, Matt, how did you really learn about all the details and, with cash flow, tax? Is it really partnering with the CFO, or did you make some mistakes and learn along the way yourself?
Definitely trial and error. I've always known that buying equipment is a full deduction against your taxes, but like Dave said, we're prepaying for insurance, we're buying equipment ahead of time, at the end of the year, so we have equipment stocked up and it's a deduction. We don't know what next year what's gonna happen. So why not take advantage of this year's good year and taxable, write-offs? It is a balance, so you don't want to spend too much, you don't want to finance too much, you do a little bit of both, and kind of plan it out like Dave said. And it's definitely never-ending education on finding new ways and new investments, and just, I'll call it the loopholes of the tax system, right? I mean, that's what we all try to do to save money and not pay the big man half your income at the end of the year.
Yeah. Are there any other ways of reducing costs, Jon? Is there anything that comes to mind? I mean, anyone could take this question.
Yeah, I can jump on that one. So again, when you have, if you have an accounting system, we'll just say QuickBooks because it is pretty popular now. I mean, not that you have to use that one, but all of them. One of the things that I do when I go over monthly financials with Jon and Matt is, I encourage them now that they can, they have visibility, they can get into a QuickBooks online, and it's easy enough with point and click now where they can kind of scrub through the expense statements, right? So you look at it and maybe it's your software expense or your kind of your memberships and dues expenses, and you go through there and you find out it's like, well, we stopped being a member of that organization a long time ago. Why are we still paying it? And the expense shows up, right? So you get on top of some things like that, or a software subscription. It's like, well, we're no longer using that app. Why are we still paying for it? And so it's really, it's owners, top management that have to get involved in that and really kind of, I say, scrub the income statement, right? If you look at the totals of the income statement, that's one thing, right? You have, here's your income, here's your expenses, here's your bottom line. But I used to work for a boss that he always said, he said to me, one of his favorite sayings was, how do I make money without turning a tire, right? I mean, so when you think about it, so there's very little risk when it comes to, I mean, there's all kinds of risk in the moving industry, right? When you're rolling down you've got your risk of claims, you got your risks of vehicle damage, you got your, all kinds of. So if you can generally make money without turning a tire, that's the easiest way to do it. But it takes a little bit of elbow grease, and you got to scrub that income statement in order to do it.
Matt, John, anything else to add? I mean, I think reducing costs, I think that's not every moving company is focusing on that aspect, but I think with the recession happening, there's a lot of people that are really scrutinizing
Yeah.
their
I think
expenses.
employee expense is the biggest piece, right? I mean, the fractional, look for as many fractional consultants as you can to help you grow your business in all the different ways you can. I think that a lot of small moving companies, people starting out, feel overly generous in what they think they need to pay employees to. Not that they don't deserve it, but do some research about the market conditions, what people are getting paid for sales reps, for operational people, depending on what you're looking for, of course. But don't be impulsive about hiring, because that can turn into a lot of time and money. If that person doesn't work out, if they don't have the skill sets that you need. So, we've done that. I mean, we get, I'll call it desperate in some situations. We need this person for this department. So the first person that looks good, sounds good, interviews well, you're hired. And we've made that mistake a few times over the last 14 years. Is they don't work out. 6 months later, they're gone. That's a lot of time, money, and training down the drain. So don't be impulsive about hiring. Don't feel like you have to overcompensate and bribe people to be in your business too. And the consultant piece. Try to do as much fractional pieces as you can.
So going back to the scrubbing in the balance sheet portion, like Dave, how often do you recommend doing that? Is this a monthly activity? Is this something that you do once a quarter? Like, how often should your team be looking at that, as a mechanism for reducing costs?
Yeah. I don't think you have to do it monthly. I don't think it's as time consuming as that. I would say at least quarterly. And make sure you have your processes on track, right? We went through a situation at Matt's when we were working through, and so one of the things we do is we charge the subcontractors back for insurance. We charge them back for if they're renting a truck from us. Okay. Well, we went through a period of time, and some of those costs were being missed, right? They weren't being charged back to the subcontractors the way they needed to be. So we got that corrected, got it on track. Is that something you need to do every month as a manager to make sure that, probably not, but, if you do it at least quarterly and put some procedures in place. I know Jon has, put together some things that he looks at in order to make sure that those things are happening and getting charged back now. But it's really a process of understanding your business, understanding what we call the, routine data procedures, making sure there's adequate controls in place over those, and to make sure that things are flowing through the way that they're supposed to. But it doesn't take long, and those things can get out of whack a little bit. So if you don't have the time to do it monthly, quarterly is probably going to be good enough.
Yeah, and I think depends on where you sit. If you haven't done it in a while, if your fingers and your arms are out of the accounting system, start with a more frequent meeting, financials and budgeting, until you have a good feel and a good rhythm going. Then, like Dave said, go to quarterly. If you're already there and you're managing really well, obviously quarterly, biannually is enough. If you already have the insight and the overview of budgeting and what's happening in the business and how much you're in your accounting system.
Right. It's like legwork is needed up front, but once you get that established, it essentially takes care of itself every quarter. Yeah, that's super helpful.
Yeah, exactly. For the most part. Depends who you have in place, of course, managing that too. And if you're managing it yourself, or if you have a contract person or an employee managing it.
Yeah, makes sense.
I just have one last question, and then we can open it up to any other Q&A that hasn't been answered. But what's your take on investing in your company more, and how does this change with the recession? Whether that's investing in actual assets, or, like you said, expanding your company, investing in more, fractional help.
Yeah, it really depends on the market you're in. I mean, I think every city and every state has a little different market condition. And, at our size, like I said earlier, we're thinking about verticaling into other industries that can do the leads in our hand and people need this service while they're moving, right? We're always doing a little bit of all of it, researching new industries to be in that relate to moving and investing in what we already have running, equipment, people, technology. We're looking at signing some new leases before the end of the year to have more locations. I mean, there's lots of pieces to it, but always keep your mind open, keep somebody on hand like Dave to help you consult and brainstorm on ideas, meet regularly about it. What can we do next? I mean, you have to be active in it to know what to do, I guess, in your market area.
Yeah, and I would also say, Heidi, that recessionary times, you're gonna have some businesses that are going to fail. So there's going to be some assets that are out on the market. You're going to have the opportunity maybe with some business closures and maybe pick up some assets relatively inexpensive, maybe some lines of business. So in terms of investing, and I know Matt's done a good job of this too. I mean, he's already rolled in several moving companies that were, maybe an owner was getting ready to retire and he, sold his business and his name, and that's one of the ways that Matt was able to expand. So he's done a nice job with that. So I mean, recessionary times, I mean, don't hide under a rock, right? I mean, you just got to kind of take a look around, and maybe the time is to expand.
Yeah, that's a very bleak but honest piece of advice. The businesses are going to fail and there's assets to pick up. But I know a lot of people were having difficulty acquiring a truck this past year. So, all right, well, I'll just turn over to Q&A. Is there anything that we haven't answered yet, Travis?
Yeah, there's a couple questions. So one question for Jon. Do you find that it's hard to train your new movers or staff on how to use technology? So is that a gap? Is that a challenge? You're smirking, so there has to be something to it.
Yeah, that's definitely can be a challenge. There's a lot of technology, movers have tough times with change from my experience, and technology from paper always seemed to be a really big gap, and tough for a lot of the guys. A lot of the younger guys have no problem doing it. They like it a little bit more. I mean, the best thing to do is just let them know that there's always going to be bumps in the road when we're doing new things. At the end of the day, you got to try to do your best to instill confidence in them that they're going to like it and it's going to make their day easier. A lot of times it doesn't even end up that way. Some technology, can overcomplicate things, but actually it is kind of the way things are rolling, and government regulations with ELDs and graph logs and time sheets and all that stuff is something you kind of have to let them know it's out of your control, and we got to kind of get this done. Do as much training with them as possible, mock moves, and show them firsthand how things work a few times. It's never going to be super different from what they're originally doing, but it will be a little bit of a rough road, but then 9 times out of 10 I would say they're going to be happy with the change.
Right. They'll be better off. It'll make their life easier. It's just the initial first step that's probably a little change management there.
Yeah, most of these technologies, they know that it's going to be a little bit of a gap for movers and any type of labor industry workers. So they do a really good job of putting together good training videos and stuff like that. You just got to keep the guys' attention and get them to stick through it. Few meetings, cookies, donuts, coffee, stuff like that, and they'll take to it.
Fireball, right?
Yeah.
Fireball for everyone.
Fireball.
Every training session.
So there's one more question, and it's going to be for you, Matt. So how do you stay connected with other movers in this community as a business owner? Where do you find and connect with peers for like knowledge sharing and best practices? Like what are your resources that you go to?
Sure. That's always been big for me, is to be friendly competition. I do talk to several other moving companies. There's a couple of them that don't like me very much because how much we've grown in the last decade. So we have that, but most of the companies I talk to are happy to hear from me, or they actually call me too, just ask how things are going, what are you doing, insight to the market, what they think and what I think. We have several companies we refer work to when we're booked, and same back. Several companies refer us work when they're filled. So keeping that open dialogue and not making it, I'm going to run you over kind of attitude, we're a better moving company, really will help you. Any company in the industry, just stay friendly competition. Ask people if they need any help. We can send you work and we're overfilled. Or if you guys run into an issue, you have a truck issue or labor shortages, call us. We're happy to help you guys. We do a great job. So it's just an open relationship, I think, that you should do. I mean, just to keep everybody comfortable with each other. And that's simple as picking up a phone or an email to start the conversation.
Yeah, it's one of the things that, I've been with Supermove now for almost 8 months, and it's interesting because it's very competitive, but it also appears to be a very collaborative industry where it's kind of a rising tide floats all boats mentality, which is really cool to see. But that does not negate the fact that it's obviously very, very competitive as well.
Yep.
One final question that actually just came through, I don't know, maybe for Matt or Jon, is have you considered the idea of outsourcing sales? Is that something that you would do, or you prefer that to be completely in-house?
Yeah, we've considered it. I've thought about it. I mean, if let's just, for instance, I've poked out a lot of all my son's moving and storage sales reps, right? I do believe they have a great sales process. Jon calls it fast food. I call it strategic. So, I've tried, and I've actually brought in people from out of state that have been sales managers at larger moving companies as consultants, and it's really hard. I mean, unless you can find a group that leaves a company together and becomes their own independent team, and somebody's managing that team, I think it'd be hard. I mean, we do have remote sales reps, but they are full-time employees, and that's a challenge when they're remote too. I mean, if you're trying to train, it does make it brings a new level of difficult to train remotely, but it is something we've thought about, and it seems like a great idea. But internal office employees, like as we're seeing in the news now all these big tech companies, not that we're tech, but they like their employees in office. They think they're more productive. I think we do get distracted at home much easier than we do in the office. And I think it becomes a better environment. I think that collaborative environment and the notoriety you get in the office, and sometimes it is hard, but overall, I think the big picture is, I think we need that as a business. I think employees need that, be interactive and
Sure.
Talking to their peers.
Because it goes back towards, cutting cost at an operational standpoint. When you are managing your sales staff in-house and your dispatch, making sure that they're covering everything on the initial sales call that they possibly can. Dispatch is backing it up. The crew is fulfilling that. If you're managing that well, then you have less issues to deal with on the back end for costs. When you have a remote sales rep out there, snake oil salesing and trying to capture as much moves as possible, they don't hear the backlash when they're sitting right next to you, and you just have to, take some heat from their customer that was thinking of something, was promised something different, and their expectations weren't managed well, and that can hurt the business in a lot of other ways, aside from having an upper level operational person dealing with a problem that shouldn't be there. You got a bad review probably coming your way, a claim coming your way. So, I personally wouldn't like the idea of outsourcing a salesperson. I think that's a pretty crucial thing to be in office for.
Yeah, like they have to be tapped in.
Yeah,
100%.
you got to feel it from
Yeah.
who's
We
taking
bring-
it.
Yeah. Yeah, we bring in a tone too that John and I really care. We're both very actively operationally in the business. So when the employees see that, they see us come in, they know we're serious about it, we're serious about growing, we're serious about customer care. That does trickle down to all the other people. And if they don't follow, they stand out. And if they don't stand out, they don't go above and beyond what the customer's expectations are for customer service, then we part ways. We can't have that. And not to be ruthless about it, but this is the way businesses should run.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you. There are no other questions, Heidi, that I am seeing in the Q&A. So
Awesome.
I think we're good there.
Yeah, well, thank you guys so much we're over time. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to have this conversation, to speak openly about finances. It's something that is not happening in the industry. I know there's no financial benchmarks because people are pretty secretive about the details of that, but really appreciate just going into the details about finances. I learned a ton, so hope that everyone else was able to walk away with a new action item that they can implement in their business. Once again, this roundtable was brought to you by Supermove. We bring your whole team to one system and make it as easy as possible to run your business. If you're not using any moving software at the moment, feel free to check out our website, sign up for a demo, and you can mention that you attended this roundtable with Dave, Jon, and Matt. Are there any last words from the panelists?
No, this was great. This was a great meeting, and I think I was a little nervous coming in, what we're going to do here, but this went pretty smooth, and I'm really happy with the questions, and it flowed pretty well. I'm happy. We're happy to do it again, actually.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt.
And I appreciate the opportunity to be involved with this. I know you like to make it educational and not salesy, but if there's somebody that does want to talk about the fractional CFO or controller opportunities, I can certainly do that. And please feel free to reach out to me.
Yep.
Awesome.
Same
Thank
with
you guys
Matt's
very
moving
much.
too. We're open for conversations and consulting and just industry ideas and brainstorming with you guys too. Anybody that wants to give us a ring.
No, thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, you guys can look out for our next event by following Supermove on social media. But with that, we can wrap up. Thanks so much to everyone.
thank you.
For you guys,
Yeah.
Thanks,
especially.
everybody. Bye.
Have a good
All
day.
right. See ya.